Science Journal for Kids and Teens presents Why Do Bees Use Social Distancing? Adapted from the original peer-reviewed paper in the journal Science Advances, published on October 29, 2021. Research conducted by Michelina Pusgeru, Alessandro Gini, Ignacio Flores, Alberto Sata, and others from the Department of Agricultural Sciences at the University of Sassari and the Center for Biodiversity and Environment Research at University College London. See the full list of authors in the accompanying PDF. Read by Miranda Wilson. Abstract. Honeybees are important insects in many of the ecosystems around us. However, they are constantly exposed to many threats. They are particularly vulnerable to disease and parasites because they live in colonies. Once a member of a colony gets infected, it is very easy for the disease to spread. This is why honeybees have some specific behaviors to help them fight infections. In this study, we wanted to see how honeybee behavior changes when Varroa destructor mites come into the colony. We found that in infected colonies, there was more social distancing between different types of bees. We also discovered that the infection led to higher interactions between bees of the same type. We think this helps bees fight the spread of the parasite. Introduction. Did you know that honeybees, also known as Apis mellifera, are social insects? This means that they live in groups or colonies. Colony members live really close together in small enclosed spaces, their hives. Because of this, they are very vulnerable to disease and parasites. If a parasite gets into the colony, it can spread very fast. To fight this, their colonies are very organized. There are two main types of bees in a beehive: younger nurse bees and older foragers. Foragers are in charge of supplying food. They fly from flower to flower collecting pollen. This means that they can sometimes run into parasites, like mites, and bring them back to the hive without knowing. To protect the young bees and the queen, foragers live near the entrance of the hive. That means the center of the hive, where nurse bees and the queen live, can remain a safe space. These techniques used to keep the colony healthy are known as social immunity. An example of a social immunity technique is social distancing. In this study, we wanted to see how bee behavior changes when the parasitic mite Varroa destructor infects a colony. Here in Image A, you can see a bee mite, Varroa destructor. The antenna and legs are sticking out from under the carapace toward the top left of the photo. In Image B, you can see a mite on a honeybee, Apis mellifera. The mite is a brown color on the lighter abdomen of the bee. We looked at 4 different types of behaviors. 1. Forager dances. Usually take place between the center of the hive and the entrance. They are how bees communicate the source of the food they bring. 2. Aloe grooming. When a bee removes and kills parasites from another bee, the same way your parents comb your hair if you have lice. This is a behavior that's more normal among nurse bees. 3. Intonation. The way bees recognize their nestmates by rubbing their antennas with each other. And 4. Trophallaxis, a feeding technique during which a bee gives liquid food to other bees. Methods. To start, we focused on whole colonies of bees. Artificial beehives are made of wooden frames placed one next to the other. Each frame contains a honeycomb made of many cells. The cells closer to the edges of the hive are usually used to store food. Cells in the center are mostly used as nests for the larvae, or brood cells. We studied the colonies by looking at different frames and checking how bees moved around the honeycombs. That meant we could see if they changed how they used their space. We filmed each colony using high-resolution cameras. Then, we used the videos to look at where the foraging dances and aloe grooming were happening. We compared hives that had naturally become infected with Varroa destructor to non-infected hives. Here in Figure 1, you can see our experimental setup. We used cameras to film the beehive so we could analyze the bee behavior later. You can see the beehive in the center of the photo in yellow, and there are two cameras, one at the very left and one at the very right of the photo, which are positioned to record any behavior from the bees in the beehive. We then studied small groups of caged young bees so that we could focus on detailed social behaviors. This time, we infected some of the bees experimentally in the laboratory. First, we focused on individual bee behavior, looking at aloe grooming, antination, and trophallaxis. Next, we looked at the social network, how bees interact with one another. We compared the behavior of the infected bees to the non-infected ones. Results. Our experiments confirmed that bees change their behavior when bees in their colony have mites. Overall, bees increase social distancing between foragers and nurse bees. Our results from observing whole hives showed that in infected colonies, foragers tend to dance closer to the outer edge of the hive, and they stay closer to the entrance of the hive. They also dance closer to food cells instead of using all the space in the honeycomb. And nurse bees stay closer to the center of the hive. This means that aloe grooming does too. It shifts towards central areas of the honeycomb and closer to brood cells, helping to kill new mites. Our results from observing smaller groups of young bees showed that there is more aloe grooming when some of the bees are infected with mites. To our surprise, there was also more trophallaxis and antination. Because of this, nurse bees become more central and interact more with each other. Here in Figure 2, you can see that when Varroa destructor mites infect a colony, this changes where the forager bees prefer to perform their dances. On the y-axis, you can see the frequency of forager dances, and on the x-axis, you can see whether the colony is infected with the mite or not. Orange bars indicate dances located in the center of the colony, whereas purple bars indicate dances along the outer edge of the hive. What happens to the forager dances when there are mites in the colony? Discussion. When looking at whole colonies, our results showed more social immunity in infected hives. But in the smaller groups of just young bees, social distancing didn't seem to be happening. This was surprising. We expected antination and trophallaxis to decrease. This would reduce the contact between bees and could help stop the spread of the parasite. We think that social interaction does not decrease between bees of the same age because this would be too costly for the colony. Also, increasing trophallaxis and antination could increase the overall level of care between bees. This could, in a way, help fight the mite. We concluded that while social immunity measures, like social distancing, help bees fight parasites, they might also be harmful. For example, when foragers perform their dances further away from brood cells in the comb, they may get fewer foraging mates to come help them gather food. That makes it more work to feed the colony. This is probably why bees only apply social distancing to a certain extent. Conclusion. Social distancing is a useful response to disease, but it can be very costly. As the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us, it means giving up many things. However, social immunity measures are widely used in the animal kingdom. This suggests that the benefits outweigh the costs. Bees are very important in our ecosystem. They help plants reproduce and help produce a lot of our food. Since bees eat pollen and drink nectar from flowering plants, you can help bees by planting these kinds of plants in your garden. Or ask your school to do so. You could also build a bee hotel, a home for wild bees who live alone rather than in hives. Thank you for listening to this recording. Visit our website, sciencejournalforkids.org, for more free science teaching resources.